Trump himself spoke about the investigations into voting irregularities. Watch.
These irregularities are inexplicable unless there is a deliberate effort to accept ineligible ballots or fraudulent ballots.
All right, joining us to discuss now is Joe Pags, radio host of the Joe Pags Show. Our panelists are back, George and Jack. Good to see you all here. Joe, I'll jump right to you. Are his claims, Trump's claims of voter fraud, still baseless, or were they ever, as the media describes them?
It's a media narrative that I don't understand, Shaun. I'll be honest with you. I just don't get it. When you've got signed affidavits that are notarized, where people are putting their names, their addresses, and their lives on the line because they could be held, for perjury, contempt of court, if they're lying, you've got evidence. In a court of law, a signed affidavit is evidence. It doesn't matter if you like it or don't like it. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. If you've got a signed, sworn affidavit, that is legal evidence and proof that somebody says something is awry here. I think the only reason the media, the left media, the big media, the legacy media keeps doing this is because it's easy to trick people. If you say it enough, people will say, come on, man, he's being a sore loser. He lost, didn't he? There's no evidence. Well, there's plenty of evidence. There's tons of evidence, in fact.
George, I'll bring you into this conversation because it is hard to stay accurate saying that using the term baseless when there is, as Joe is pointing out, evidence being brought forth in a legal matter.
I think when you're discussing something this serious, you have to focus on what's material. And I think anyone who says there was no fraud this election cycle is just lying. There clearly was fraud, and there's fraud in every election. And for some reason, the Democratic Party seems to kind of wink or look away from or even encourage fraud at times among their voter group, which I think is abhorrent and it's un-American. The key material question, though, is there enough fraud to tip the results of the election? And I don't think there's been enough evidence out there that would actually happen in this instance. But that's why we play this all the way out. And like you all said, you're going to play it out for another 10, 11 days until the Electoral College rules. And hopefully some evidence will come out that'll clarify things. But so far, there's clear evidence of fraud. But is it enough to tip the result?
Al Gore had time to contest it as well. It's only fair. It's only fair. Yesterday, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany was asked by a reporter about the DOJ and Bill Barr supposedly saying there is no evidence just yet of voter fraud. McEnany here setting the record straight.
Some media outlets have incorrectly reported that the department has concluded its investigation of election fraud and announced an affirmative finding of no fraud, and that is not what the AP reported nor what the AG stated. I think a lot of the media didn't read beyond that one comment to the civil part versus the criminal part.
Well, I think maybe the discrepancy is, you have members of the Trump campaign coming forward and saying that there is hard evidence of widespread voter fraud enough to overturn the outcome of the election, and then you have the nation's top law enforcement officer, the Attorney General, saying if there is, he hasn't seen it.
Well, the Attorney General was speaking to what has come before his desk. And again, I'd point you to the campaign for specific questions on this, but I would just say generally they are pursuing civil litigation, which in fact the Attorney General explicitly said some of this is meant more for civil litigation, which is what the campaign is currently pursuing.
All right, Jack Kingston on that. And just want to clarify, Bill Barr says to date, he hasn't seen it, hasn't come across his desk. He's speaking for his office alone. He doesn't work for the different courtrooms across these swing states.
Shaun, the other thing, you're absolutely right about that. He is not closing the door on it. It takes a long time to build these cases. You got to get all your affidavits in a row. You've got to get your evidence together. And that simply hasn't come before him. And it's not a criminal matter. What he's saying, it's a civil matter. One thing that the press always misses is Kayleigh McEnany is an attorney as well. She's not just sitting there reading some statement from another lawyer. She's looked at it from her own legal lens, and what she's saying is absolutely right. It is right now in the civil courts, and that's not where Bill Barr is. So it takes a while, but this is going to have to be played through. The media was patient all day long when it came to Al Gore, but suddenly it's got to be done the day after the election as far as Joe Biden's concerned. So I think we're just going to have to let this thing take its course, and that the system's set up for that, and that's where we are right now.
All right, I'm out of time. I appreciate all you gentlemen coming on and chatting about this. Joe Pags, thank you so much. George, Jack, stick around.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.